What leads you to talk about reparations on the campaign trail?
So what I find is when you say to people, first slave ships came here in 1619, slavery not abolished for another 250 years. That at the end of slavery, 1865, there were between 4 and 5 million formerly enslaved people, that they were promised 40 acres and a mule for a family of 4, that promise was rescinded, that except for the time of Reconstruction, the entire 100 years following the end of the Civil War was another era of institutionalized violence against Black people. A lot of people just haven't really put that in their minds. I say to people, what do you call lynchings if not domestic terrorism? What do you call Ku Klux Klan if not domestic terrorism? So what you end up with is 350 years of institutionalized violence. So when people are thinking, people are processing, and then and the economic gap, obviously economic gap at the end of the Civil War, not only has never not been closed, but a lot of white people also don't realize how many efforts, Black Wall Street, et cetera, how many efforts at the accumulation of Black wealth had been thwarted by local governmental policies, et cetera, how in some ways we're moving backwards because of mass incarceration, racial sentencing disparity, et cetera. And also, when people hear the historical context, that Germany paid $89 billion to Jewish organizations, that Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act in 1988 that gave the surviving prisoners from the World War II internment camps, Japanese internment camps, were paid between $20,000 and $22,000. And then the clincher for me, it's a stimulus. A study was done recently that if Black families created as much wealth as white families, our economy would be $1.5 million larger. There's nothing to be afraid of here. If we have a $500 billion reparations plan in which over a period of 20 years, money is dispersed to a reparations council of, obviously they were to be descendants of slaves in America. People such as Professor Sandy Darity at Duke University, people who've done, scholarly work on this for years, cultural leaders, political leaders, academic leaders. And the stipulation on the part of the American government would be this, that the money is to go towards purposes of economic and educational renewal. Now, that's a big deal to me. And that's what makes this different than race-based policies. Race-based policies are good, obviously, if some candidate says we're going to give money to home ownership or we're going to give money to historically Black colleges, all that's good. But it's still, to me, a continuation of the same paternalism. We messed with you, we're going to tell you how we're going to fix you. What I like about reparations is, if I owe you money, I don't get to tell you how to spend it. Reparations carries a moral authority because it carries the emotional, psychological, and spiritual power of an acknowledgement of a wrong that was done, a debt that is owed. We're talking about a debt here, a debt that is owed, and the willingness on the part of people to pay it. So it really disrupts a pattern and really helps with racial reconciliation in a way that race-based policies alone do not. And that's how I see it. So like I said, this is for all of America. This is not just, I think when Germany paid reparations to the Jews, it wasn't just so that the Jews could start over, it's so that Germany could start over. I've noticed when I talk about the Black Code laws, most white people don't even know that at the end of the Civil War, that once the federal troops left, the white legislatures throughout the South passed laws that ensured subpar economic, social, and political opportunity for people. And when people realize and are educated to the fact that, wow, that stuff did not end until 1964. I mean, that was my lifetime. So I think that we need a politics in this and in a lot of areas that gives the people a chance to be noble and intelligent. But part of political leadership should be educating people about what's really going on. And our disconnection from our history, we all know that one of the ways to disempower people is to disconnect them from their history. But we as Americans are too disconnected from our history. We have 11 states in this country that don't even demand half a year of requirement of American history and government and civics, and that's part of how we got into this trouble. Too many Americans don't know the history of our country anymore. We need to tell the real truth. We need to get real. The whole political establishment is kind of not what we're all really talking about. We need to, I always say about my campaign, I'm not saying anything everybody I know isn't saying. I'm just saying it when the mic is on. We need to have a presidential candidate and a president who is saying it the way we all know it really is. Because that's the only way this country will be able to put everything on the table that's really going on, deal with it like adults, and move to the other side.